a couple minutes early to make sure our audio and everything is looking good. How's everybody doing? I see we already have some folks here watching, and that's super cool. So we're not going to kick off everything too early because, you know, then we would just have to be repeating ourselves. By ourselves, I mean me today, right? So can everybody hear me all right? Let me know if you're having any trouble hearing me. Audio should be good to go. We tested everything in this particular space. This is not my usual space, my office, which is over at our other facility, but this is our main guest facility, which is super fun. Buenos dias, Patricia. Patricia was here visiting us in May and June of this year, and she was one of the members of the inaugural group staying at this fantastic space. At least we think it's pretty fantastic. So we had expected today to be introducing the whole entire team, and then some of them got called to an emergency community meeting, and so they're not here right now. So you're going to be stuck primarily hanging out with me today. And yeah, so here we are. Like I said, we're going to wait, you know, probably for a couple minutes after noon to really kick off and really get things rolling. In the background there, you can see Manuel, who is puttering in the garden, because, you know, that is something he does. He excels at maintaining our garden and our outdoor space, which I'm going to have a great chance to show you. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. I hope you all really like it and everything. And we're going to be talking today about some of the new things that I have coming up, like just in general, but primarily focusing on what's coming up for trips to Peru, because we are announcing a whole bunch of cool new things today. And we're here to answer your questions about them. And we've sort of pre-announced our first upcoming new tour. Is he sweeping the garden? Yeah, he's been known to be out there sweeping the leaves, right? Because he doesn't like the rakes that he's found, and so he feels that the stiff broom that he's got does a better job. He's been known to do that. He is reviewing everything, making sure it all is to his satisfaction, which it never is. He is never satisfied with how the garden is. That's just one of the things. That's just one of the things about Manuel. He really enjoys caring for the plants and the outdoor spaces. Well, all of the spaces. He is super meticulous. You know, it's definitely a benefit for us to have somebody who likes to take care of things that way. So we hosted one group of people here in late May and early June for the Fiesta of Señor de Choquequilca, which is Ollantaytambo, the town where I live, the town that I'm in right now. It's the patron saint, and the fiesta is like a really big deal. It lines up with Pentecostes, which is Pentecost, which is a Catholic holiday, and it is essentially a week-long party that the entire town participates in, with lots of dance troupes and lots of cool stuff happening and all of that. And while we were doing that trip, once again, just like everybody who's come to visit me has said, they've said, you should just do like a trip where basically we focus on eating, because food here is pretty good. And pretty diverse and eclectic and all of that kind of stuff. So we just announced the end of November tour experience, which is in fact focused on food, and I'll tell you more about that as we sort of kick things off and everybody gets rolling. We are now 2 minutes past the hour. I'm going to give people a couple more minutes, like I say, because I usually find if we try and get rolling, like really rolling, right at the stroke of noon with almost anything, then people join in, and then they're sort of asking the questions that we literally just answered, or they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry I'm late, or, you know, I've missed this. And so we'll give like a minute or two. But yeah, so anyway, while we're talking about that, yes, I am Abby Franquemont, and I am a spinner and weaver and author and person who likes to teach people how to make string with a stick, as I'm fond of saying, because that's kind of what spindle spinning is, and that is one of my main specialties. And I teach a lot of Andean techniques because I grew up here in the Andes and I moved back permanently about 5 years ago. And just in time to start bringing folks to visit, primarily for textile-focused experiences. And we were just getting rolling with all of that when the super awesome pandemic hit. And so, I had assembled this amazing team. Marta, who is a hospitality specialist for pretty much her entire life, who has experienced cooking for groups of up to 2,000 people, who likes to manage a household and make sure everything runs smoothly the way that she wants it to, and so forth. And her husband, Manuel, who is our facilities manager. And he is actually a retired adventure logistics guy. He started working in his teens as a porter on the Inca Trail, and then he ramped up to being a cook on the Inca Trail, and then he was lead cook on the Inca Trail, and then he was lead cook and logistics in general for a trekking company, and they worked with a whole lot of different things. So he was the guy who handled all the food and other logistics like that for lots of film crews, like for when they did Survivor Man Peru, for example. He was the one feeding the entire team and all of that kind of stuff. So he is able to do just about anything you can think of. He fixes things in the field, he makes things work in the field, and he maintains all of our infrastructure and keeps that working spectacularly. And Jocelyn, who is my right hand, has the Peruvian equivalent of a Master's of Business Administration, dealing with hospitality and tourism. And she is really, really on the ball and just has everything covered. And then we've recently started to give some additional work to Piero, who is my nephew. And he is Marta and Manuel's son, and he is currently studying gastronomy. In other words, he is in culinary school, and he is on his way to becoming a Peruvian fusion chef. He has tremendous vision and really enjoys cooking and a whole lot of that kind of stuff. And so with all of these things in mind, on our digital channels at Franquemont University, which is my online school, starting in September, we're launching a food segment, right? A food thing. And so we're going to do one major recipe a month, and we're going to talk about what the ingredients are, where we get them, what would be comparable ingredients in other parts of the world, because everything that you find in Peru, you don't necessarily find, in Ohio or wherever. I've also lived in Ohio, and didn't find everything I needed for Peruvian cooking there, unless I went to Jungle Gems. But yeah, anyway, so we'll be trying to make a lot of the Peruvian food stuff accessible for international cooking. The other thing is, Peruvians don't cook with recipes. Peruvians just cook. And so this has been something that has been exciting for Piero, my nephew, as he has been going through culinary school and everything, is finding ways to sort of regularize all of that kind of stuff. And we've had a lot of questions from a lot of people where they're saying, oh, well, how do you make this? Could you teach me how to make this? Can I get this recipe? And so we're gonna be actually doing some more of that. So the only way to get that content right now is by joining Franquemont University, which right now there are special deals on the website. But anyway, yeah, so along with all of that, because the questions that have been coming up again and again and again, that we've kind of been saying, all right, we really should do something about that. so many have been about food, right? And it's understandable because the food here really is excellent. You know, everybody here cooks. I cook, Marta cooks, Manuel cooks, Piero is in training to be a chef, and Jocelyn says she doesn't cook, but she cooks quite a bit. It's just not like her thing. So anyway, so yeah, so that's what we're doing. So we have a super fun experience coming up in November. Where you can join us and you know, learn how to cook a lot of Peruvian things, eat a lot of amazing food, and also, of course, you know, see the amazing sights that the Cusco area has to offer. So, you know, that's important stuff, and we've got that coming up from November 18th to December 2nd. The thinking was, based on a lot of different feedback, that if we scheduled it with a little bit of the USA Thanksgiving holiday that people often have time off for in there, people might be able to stretch and do all of that kind of stuff. Of course, it also means sometimes it's tough to get time off at that time of year, but you know, there's all of that. And it's a great way to, instead of focusing on kind of the USA perspective on that holiday, to focus on some traditional food from the Americas and how people who are native to the Americas, indigenous people here, you know, really do live and like to do parties and stuff like that, because we're gonna, you know, have to have some parties and some special event food and all that kind of stuff. You wouldn't want to miss out. But these are all things where when people have come to visit for other experiences, they've said, okay, like, I really wish there was one that focused on the food. I just want to go and hang out and relax, maybe see some interesting sights and just eat amazing food and maybe learn to cook some of it. And also, like, where do they grow this stuff and who grows it and how does it happen? So there's like a cultural and educational aspect to the thing that we've got coming up in November, and that we're really looking forward to. It is branching out a bit for us from the strictly textile focused experiences that we have done previously. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, so has anybody here tried Peruvian food before? Have you all like tried Peruvian food? I'm curious if people have tried Peruvian food, what dishes you may have tried, what you may have heard of, and that kind of thing. So feel free to type that into the chat and all of that. And that gives me lots more interesting stuff to speak to and so forth. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to show you around our guest facilities, which I think are pretty comfortable. Okay, they're really comfortable. We have this fantastic garden that you can see behind me. I'm sitting in the dining room, and the dining room also has like a living room seating area and stuff, and it's large and spacious, and so we can have whole group gatherings here and really enjoy you know, relaxing in this delightful space. And there's a whole lot to say about all of that, and lots of fun stuff to see. And well, anyway, so when I woke up this morning, it was actually raining, which is really unusual for August, because this is sort of the worst of the dry season. And that's another fun thing about November, is that it's springtime, because it's winter here. It's winter here right now, and it's just starting to kind of move into spring, and we are gonna be you know, starting to see more rain. Everyone's starting to plant their crops and starting to hope that there is rain. We have been told that this is going to be a really serious El Nino phenomenon year. So that could mean all kinds of excitement for the coast, but probably everything is going to be pretty chill here at higher altitude where we are. So yeah, so where is Ollantaytambo? Where am I? Let me start with that. So Cusco, which is up in the mountains in the south of Peru, was the capital of the Inca Empire, also called the Tawantinsuyo, which is the 4-in-1 nation, basically, is what they called it. And that was a really large empire spanning pretty much the entirety of the Andes mountain range, which span pretty much the length of South America on the western side, more or less. Although there's, it drops down to the sea, and the mountains don't go all the way right to the ocean, to the Pacific Ocean. But yeah, so Cusco was the capital of the Inca Empire. The Inca are probably the most famous pre-Columbian, as in before the Spanish got here, culture from Peru, from the Andes. They're very, very well known. But there were a lot of cultures before the Inca, and the Inca themselves were kind of conquerors, and they built a very large empire. But unlike a lot of European empires, it was somewhat more collaborative, somewhat more likely to roll in all of the technology and lore and information that they received in absorbing prior cultures and that kind of stuff. So there's a whole lot of interesting things to be experienced in the Cusco area that are not just Inca, but pre-Inca. South America and Peru in particular has been inhabited and lived in by technological cultures for thousands and thousands of years. And in a lot of cases, when people talk about the history of the world, it tends to be somewhat, quote unquote, old world centered, or potentially even Eurocentric, which means centering around the cultures of Europe. And there's less discussion that fits into a lot of the English-speaking world's general education about the history of the world. So there's a whole lot of history of the Americas that gets missed and dropped out of there unless you grow up in or are educated in a former Spanish colony, in which case they do include a whole lot of that kind of stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff to know about that. But so Peru is just south of the equator, to a little further south of the equator. So it is located in a tropical zone, and it has coastal deserts, amazing high mountains, fertile plains, dry highland plains, and rainforest and deep Amazon jungle. And it's a very diverse and very eclectic kind of environment. Cusco is a city, and it is a province, and it is a región, a region, which is like a state. So like a state in the USA. So it is kind of big, and it is, like I say, the former capital of the Inca Empire. So there is this tremendous amount of history and also amazing archaeological stuff here to see. So you may have heard of our most famous archaeological site, Machu Picchu, which is considered one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. And that is 60 kilometers from here on the train. So Ollantaytambo, the town that I live in, is the place where the trains to Machu Picchu leave from. And Machu Picchu is up above the town of Aguascalientes. And the only way to get to Aguascalientes by vehicle is on the train. You can also go further downstream along the river and then walk up the train tracks for about 10 kilometers, but that's not usually exciting to everybody, and it is not accessible by car. So Ollantaytambo is this really interesting place that's situated right at that point. And over the years that there have been a lot of tourists going to Machu Picchu, lots of people have come through Ollantaytambo and spent time here. And that's cool for a lot of reasons, because it means that everybody in Ollantaytambo is really accustomed to dealing with people from all over the world, and people who really want to see things. And so that's pretty neat. And there's a lot of comfortable stuff to check out and to do. And so that is really cool to see, in my opinion. I think that's fun. I think that's nice. And it's also beautiful. It's basically a tropical paradise, except it isn't super duper hot. So it gets up to t-shirt weather during the course of the day, pretty much every day. But then in the evening, in the late afternoon and the evening, it drops down to sweater weather, pretty much around the clock. So if you like yarn, it's essentially completely paradise. Also, like, everything you can imagine grows really close to here. So from a food perspective, like we're talking about, you know, when I drink coffee, it comes from 25 kilometers away. When I have chocolate, it comes from that same area, 25, 30 kilometers away. There's amazing fruit, amazing just everything. Lots and lots of food. And the Sacred Valley of the Incas, which is where Ollantaytambo is situated, was kind of the breadbasket of the Inca Empire, or of the central part of the Inca Empire. And it is this valley floor where there was a very meandery river that spread across the sort of flat part of the valley floor. And the Incas did something called channelize it, which is during the dry season when the river is very low, they dredged out channels and built up walls along the sides and all of that kind of stuff, so that the river would follow a predictable and more contained course, and there was room to grow all kinds of crops along the riverside. And then most of the Inca habitations and dwellings and settlements and cities are up on the mountainsides that are above the valley. And so that's pretty interesting. Ollantaytambo is situated at the downstream end of the Sacred Valley of the Incas, and it was an important fortress and ritual center for the Incas, but it was inhabited before that, probably going back to around 6,000 years ago, based on archaeological finds. And it is considered to be one of the longest continuously inhabited places in the Americas. And so it's pretty cool because everything is kind of built up on top of all of that previous stuff. So the entire town is an archaeological site that has never stopped being lived in. Like, it never became ruins or what have you. So there are kind of not inhabited sites and archaeological sites and things that people like to see all over town, and that's pretty cool. But also people live in some of them. So you can go out for pizza in an old Inca house. Like, that's pretty cool. Our house is not an old Inca house, but it does have this kind of rustic look to it, even though it is a modern house with modern facilities and modern everything. And like I say, I'm going to show you around that in a little bit. So this is mainly where folks who come visit me are going to be staying, because also it is at what is considered moderate altitude. So it is about 9,500 feet or 2,800 meters above sea level, which is considered moderate altitude as opposed to really high altitude. So what this means is that there's a lot less risk of people having sort of a bad reaction to altitude right off the bat when they get here. It's much easier to acclimate. And so usually if people spend a few nights sleeping at an altitude like this, then they're good to go for going to higher altitude for day trips and doing other things like that. And so that is another reason why that is my base of operations here. Also, it's like really cool and pretty, and the food is great, and you know, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah, so that makes it very comfortable and so forth. And you know, we very rarely see people have actual altitude issues acclimating here when they come and visit us, and so that makes it pretty cool. And in fact, you know, even when I'm just giving general advice on how to visit Peru, I usually suggest that people want to go, and upon arriving in Cusco, which is like 3,500 meters or 11,500 feet above sea level, that they may prefer to go a few thousand feet, almost 1,000 meters lower into the Sacred Valley and spend their first few days there in order to not just get their butts kicked by the altitude, because that really is a thing that can happen and is a bummer. So yeah, so that's an important kind of thing to know. Yeah, so Anyway, let's see, we had some questions and some comments come in about kinds of favorite foods, and one was ají de pollo. We usually call that ají de gallina here, which is a chicken in sauce kind of meal that is served usually with rice and lettuce, and it is really very tasty. It's kind of a stewed chicken sort of dish. Very classic, and that is one of Marta's specialties. Actually, she makes, in my opinion, the best ají de gallina, along with the best papas a la huancaína, which is Huancayo style potatoes. Those are two examples of things where, in my opinion, she makes the absolute best of anybody. And Patricia also says causa, and causa is one of my nephew Piero's new specialties, and that is, how would I describe that? So it is like mashed potatoes. You got like a layer of mashed potatoes, and then there is like a filling that can be made like chicken salad or tuna salad or something in that vein, that has a layer on it, along with some avocado, and then another layer of mashed yellow potatoes and some other seasonings and some stuff like that. And this was a very popular coastal dish because it's eaten room temperature, and it's really excellent. And so we think causa is possibly going to be our October virtual school dish of the month. We are kicking it off kicking September off with milanesa de pollo, which is a kind of chicken cutlet, which is a real people pleaser for a lot of folks, and that kind of stuff. So Heather says, I've had some type of chicken dish at an area Peruvian restaurant, and it was awesome. Well, there's a few kinds of chicken dishes. There's a few, and yeah, and so we are, working on making it possible to bring all of this cuisine. One of the things that would always be interesting for me when I was in the U.S. is people would say, well, so there's this Peruvian restaurant. Can you take me to this Peruvian restaurant, and then tell me what are your favorite dishes? What are the things that you like to eat? And one of the kind of sad things about Peruvian restaurants in other parts of the world is that they don't necessarily feature food from the Cusco area, right? They feature a lot of what's called Creole food, or food that is coastal, and they don't necessarily have the things that I grew up eating and all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm always like, well, so here's the sort of, these are your standard family restaurant dishes, kind of like things that you would order at a diner in the USA perhaps, right? And not so much in terms of the things that we cook and eat around the house here, or that are our staples, and a lot of that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of amazing Peruvian food, but the stuff that has been getting a lot of attention in many parts of the world elsewhere is coastal food. So it focuses heavily on seafood dishes, or it is a lot of what they call Creole food. So it's what criollos, or people who are of Spanish descent but born and raised in Peru, that's what they're usually called, we're cooking and so forth. So it is not the sort of the native cuisine, if you will. Some of it is, and some of it is fusion, and I mean, there's everything here. And then everybody likes to sort of fuse everything and make everything here. And Peruvian food is it's a big topic. It's a really big topic. And that's part of why we thought, by popular request, we would start to add stuff about Peruvian food to our online class stuff, starting in September. And all of that is very exciting. Anyway, so we've got the food expedition, and you can look on my website for lots more information about that. And there we go. I've got a great question here, which is, are there good options for vegetarians? And actually, the High Andes diet is much more vegetable focused than not. So in general, for our food experience, we can accommodate pretty much any food requirement that you have, because everything is cooked from scratch, and we cook everything from scratch. There's plenty of vegetarian food, plenty of amazing traditional vegetarian dishes, and also because there is such a wealth of fruit and vegetables, there's a lot here. So one of the things that's really interesting is that the classic Peruvian vegetables that people may not know about are Peruvian non-meat products that people may not necessarily realize are Peruvian in their origins, begin with the potato, which is from Peru, and we have over 4,000 varieties, or over 400 varieties, depending on whether you like to combine categories or split them out. And so that's a taxonomical question. And there are a lot of high altitude grains and legumes that grow here and not really anywhere else that are high in protein and really popular for eating. So there are a lot of really fantastic vegetable dishes. When I say we can accommodate a whole lot of, dietary things, Martha also deals with cooking for the entire family now, and Jocelyn and I are diabetic since COVID. And Manuel has hypercoagulability, which is a thick blood, is what they call it, and that is that means that he can't have anything high in iron, and so she, on a day-by-day basis, accommodates this range of different things in the different plates that she makes and everything, and then people have what they like and what they don't like, and we often eat entirely vegetarian, and Martha is also an expert vegan cook, and a whole lot of different stuff. And she has cooked for people from all over the world for most of her life, for like 40 years. So there's a lot to say. And yeah, there's plenty of stuff. The way that the traditional high altitude Andean diet works is that you mainly are eating vegetables and potentially cheese, and then like once every couple weeks, there might be a soup or a stew that has some meat in it. And then for special occasions, there are some meat dishes. So it is not a heavily meat-focused diet. High Andean people are often mystified by meeting people from the USA who are accustomed to eating meat at every meal, because that is not standard here at all. Marta has already been up to that. So another popular Peruvian grain that is really diverse is and has a lot of different things that go on is quinoa, which has a fair amount of protein in it. And then there is also tarwi, which is a lupin, and it makes like produces these sort of like flattish, round, bean-like things, and those are also delicious, in my opinion. A lot of things that can be done with a whole lot of that. And then there's the corn, the local corn, which again is, it's these giant kernels. Like if you've ever seen the snacks Corn Nuts, they're actually based on that corn in toasted form, in dried and toasted form, which is a popular snack here. So there's a lot. There's a whole lot. And there's also, modern international food all over the place, okay? So, we're also going to be able to, we can also get a whole lot of different things and prepare a whole lot of different stuff. So like I say, we can accommodate pretty much any food requirement. And yeah, like a lot of things, in my opinion, are better here than they are in a lot of other places in the world, because in some cases people have come and they've taken a Peruvian product and they've tried to make it palatable to a North American audience, right? And they maybe could have benefited from learning some more about the traditional ways that those things are cooked. I mean, the potato, it's hard to go wrong with the potato. The mighty potato, I'm telling you, like there's a lot there. It's hard to go wrong with that. But yeah, so it's pretty good. Anyway, yeah, so like I say, we can accommodate a lot, and there are a lot of different food options, and there are plenty of vegetarians here, and they were really cool, even vegetarian and vegan restaurants and all of that kind of stuff. Although you should know that Marta will probably ask you, like if somebody says, and I'm vegan, she will probably ask you what exactly that means, because one of the things that she has experienced with people visiting is that sometimes people's definitions of vegan can vary. So it's best not to assume. It's like she had somebody actually completely get upset with her because chicken was on the menu and she served chicken to everybody else, but she gave them a totally non-chicken, non-egg version of stuff with a vegetable fritter, and they were like, well, I want chicken. And she was like, but you're vegan. And anyway, so that is a thing that has happened. So yeah, so let's do a quick stroll around the facilities here. I'm gonna unplug and go wireless here and stand up. Let's see if I can flip this around. Here is our main common room. So you can see that's where I was sitting to talk and all of that. And among other things, we have reverse osmosis filtered water for all of this kind of stuff. I do want to highlight that this place came with a spinning wheel shaped object, which is this lamp that looks like a spinning wheel. And this could be made to work. This actually could be made to work if I can get a local woodworker to make a bobbin for it, which I could probably convince someone to do. I mean, just why would I? But, you know, but it's because then I could have a functioning spinning wheel lamp, which seems pretty funny. But anyway, so this is our main indoor hangout area. Our main indoor hangout area. And it's pretty comfortable and configurable, and we kind of configure it for however many people are going to be here. And then I guess I'm going to quickly show you the kitchen. And this is where Marta was like, no, don't show them the kitchen. It's not like active right now. But this is a two-sided kitchen, which makes it excellent for doing classes and food education. So you've got one side set up with a stove and everything over here. And then we're going to bring an additional stove over for the additional cooking. And you can fit quite a lot of people into this kitchen. And it's got multiple sinks and spaces for multiple fridges and all of this kind of stuff. So that's actually pretty cool. And it even has like social seating in the kitchen, right? So you can socialize and hang out in the kitchen. You can see, I hope you can see, that it is a pretty big and pretty spacious area. And yes, it is wintertime here, which means that it's cold. Hola, Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Hola, Luis, ¿cómo estás? And yes, there is hot water and everything. Les estamos haciendo conocer. ¿Te puedo presentar?
Sí, creo que estoy bien.
This is Jocelyn, and she is my left hand. I say that because everyone thinks about right hands and nobody thinks about left hands. And my left hand is actually the one that has some issues, and also she is left-handed. Así que eres la mano izquierda.
La mano izquierda.
Sí.
Mucho gusto.
So she says hello, and she handles logistics for so many different things. And this is Mao.
Mau.
Mao.
Mira, Mau. Ven.
And he doesn't always come over here, but he does come over to visit the garden. Aha, a la reunión. And these are the leadership folks of the Abby's Yarns FC, you know, Abby's Yarns Football Club, our football team. And now we are gonna just take one more look around. I suppose I might as well mention that Abby's Yarns FC last year won the championship. So, you know, we do have to fill up our window spaces. Yeah, we've got like, I like the window seats too. Like there's just a whole lot of seating here. But we figure we've got those 4 windows and we probably need a trophy for every one of them. So football season is in full swing right now. And now let's walk out to the garden. Here is the garden. And we'll just sort of come down this way. That's our guest house. And the garden is really pleasant to sit in and eat in and work in. And I spend a lot of time actually over here working from the garden. Although yesterday I drew the line at working from a hammock. We've got like these nice hammocks you can choose sun or shade. And we've got shaded areas to sit in and hang out in and do a lot in. And this is a really pleasant garden that is meant to be used, meant to be sat in, meant to be hung out in, and all of that kind of thing. So I'm gonna walk you around over here, and we have a bunch of guest rooms. I'm only gonna show you some, but here's one. Bright and spacious and really comfortable bathrooms and all of that kind of stuff. And we have excellent hot water, really hot, really high pressure water, which is not always the case everywhere in Latin America. Latin America on the whole, not just Peru. And I'll show you some of the view. We're gonna go up the stairs. Look, we've got all of these cool plants. And Martha has been planting her herbs and things like that. And we're gonna go up the stairs. And I just want to mention that I am on our whole facility Wi-Fi right now, which reaches the entire place. We're super happy about that. Here is a second floor room. This is one of our matrimonial rooms, and it has this view, the river, and again, really excellent setups. One of the questions is, do you have guests at times aside from when you do tours? It depends. We will do custom group things. And one of the things I'm about to announce is a special plan that is pretty affordable to just come and stay and not have to be on a formal tour. So our king size bedroom. There is a TV, but I don't know how much you really even care about the TV. So they're bright and spacious rooms and very comfortable, like I say. We're gonna go all the way up to the 3rd floor because we have to. We also made sure that we have really good stabilized power for everybody, and it's, you know, pretty comfortable, pretty modern, but it has this sort of rustic, down-to-earth look and everything. And you may be wondering what this tube is here, and that is actually our irrigation system, and it pulls water from the Inca irrigation system on the other side of the river. And it is pressure fed, gravity fed, and that is what we water our garden with. And, you know, we also are sustainable in terms of doing things like compost and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that is pretty cool. So these are some of our spacious double rooms. And we have a deal on the November trip, for example, where it is where if couples come, basically the second partner is half off. Anyway, so now we're gonna go up to the third floor. Hola, Manuel. Estamos bien. Hola, Manuel. Manuel is our facilities manager and master gardener and adventure chef and all of that. And so here are some of the views. And he's going to take us to what we actually think is kind of the coolest room. He's opening things up. La señora Patricia te manda saludos.
Oh, muchas gracias. También le mando muchos saludos a ella.
And so, like, check out the views from here, from this room. We actually really like this room a lot. Like, so here's your view of farmland, and the terraces in the distance are, you know, Inca terraces, because this is all archaeological site. Like I say, so you're literally staying in an archaeological site when you come here. It's pretty hard to beat. So, well, you know, these are your views. So this is one of our, you know, shared occupancy rooms. And then here is the view, you know, of the courtyard. Oh, here comes Mao. And the mountain over here is the Apu Pinculyuna, which from this angle you can't quite see the main face there, but you can see some of the archaeological site stuff there. And he is the protector spirit of the town of Ollantaytambo. And you can see there is modern infrastructure of all different kinds. We have fiber optic internet and you know, high-speed internet and all of that kind of stuff. Again, there's not a lot that is built in this area because it's archaeological site. And then right up there is part of the town as well that is newer homes that has where people have permission to do it. But yeah, you can come all the way up here with, you know, cars can come all the way in, which is not true everywhere in Ollanta, because a lot of the streets are old pre-Columbian streets that cars can't access. By the time folks get here in November, you'll be able to just come right out and pick a peach. Like right here. These are peaches right here. And like I say, the garden. And it's winter, so yeah, it's not as lush as it could be. Just one more look at, I think this is Patricia's room with a little balcony. So yeah, this is pretty cool. We do host small groups and whatnot by prior arrangement. So anybody who wants to come and stay can get a hold of us, and we can make a prior arrangement. But we don't operate just like a regular hotel, mostly so that we have time to run around and do all of our other projects, and we don't have the team tied up waiting for maybe people are going to show up, maybe not. But yeah, so this is where things are at. And Manuel is kind of like, oh, but the flowers aren't as good as they should be, and some of the stuff looks kind of ragged right now. There is an avocado tree. Patricia says, isn't there an avocado tree? There is. We don't know yet if it's going to bear fruit. Marta has her special lilies. And we don't know yet if this avocado tree, which is this one, is going to bear fruit for us this year. And all of that. Because it's a nice day, the animals got to come over and everything. So this is a really nice afternoon and everything. When I got up this morning, there was snow up on the mountain behind those trees and all of that because it rained overnight. So the lady on the wall there, this mosaic with the lady dressed in Ollantaytambo traditional clothes came with the building, and that was decor that was put there by the prior renters who sort of they had a small hotel chain where every building had a woman in some sort of traditional attire walking away from you on the building. And so since there's half a lady there, half a woman, we call her the Wailaka, which is the Quechua word for kind of a woman who is half-assed. And so we call this Wailaka Wasi, the Wailaka house. So yeah, hammocks in the shade. Mao, who likes to photobomb. Nice places to hang out. And the bonfire area. And all of that kind of stuff. And then this is, outdoor hangout area, so we can do a whole lot of different things here in the outdoor spaces as well. And yeah, and excellent cell phone signal from the antennas up on the hills and all that kind of stuff. And now we will go back in and take any further questions and wait for my glasses to transition. So yeah, so here we are. And let me just check back over here and see if I caught everything. Looks like I caught most things. Looks like I caught most of the questions. Anyway, the dogs live next door at our house, and we call it Animal House, and this is the Wailaka house. So the dogs just come over to run around when we're all doing stuff here and everything. Marta is still at her town meeting. And from the sound of the thumping bass from next door, it sounds like Piero is on kitchen duty and is cooking us something delicious. It'll be delicious because he's in training to be a chef. So whatever he makes is going to be spectacular. We never have a bad meal. It's always really good. And that is why people have been like, yeah, but come on, what about focusing on food? What if we just came and hung out and ate? We can do that. We can make that happen. So anyway, yeah, so let's go ahead and take questions and take people's questions in general about stuff. So we have one here. Do we see cool birds in the garden? We see a lot of cool birds in the garden. In fact, I just put up a video on Instagram yesterday while I was working from the garden, and I was being buzzed by a couple of hummingbirds. Like, we have a lot of different kinds of hummingbirds here in Ollanta, actually. Sometimes also birds from the jungle come up, and those are really dramatic birds. We have future plans to maybe put together a bird watching experience. But I haven't sorted that all out. I haven't figured out the logistics on that yet. So that is something, but there are birds to be seen pretty much everywhere we're going to go, and interesting ones. And we know that that is a thing that interests people, and all of that. So the specific hummingbird in the video that I posted yesterday on Instagram is called a long-tailed sylph, and yeah, it's got a body like this big and then a tail like this big, and we were also home to the world's largest hummingbird, which is big, I guess, is like what you can see. It's like its body is like that. And so there's that. So anyway, so yeah, bird watching just happens in the course of anything that you do here, and it's kind of hard to miss it. So some things that you can't miss if you come to Peru and you're here for a deeper experience, if you come to the Cusco area for a deeper experience, are textiles, food, interesting animals, like mainly birds. And also like cool plants, really cool plants. There's a lot of very interesting plants. So we have a whole long list of different subjects that we want to sort of concentrate on and do focus on, with different things providing deeper experiences here. And we are just now announcing, like right this minute, a roll your own, build your own, choose your own adventure kind of plan, where there is a base price for a week of just staying here and having your food handled for you. And in fact, if that's all you feel like doing, you can just come hang out here and be on total vacation and be waited on hand and foot and all of that kind of stuff. And that has that is really a whole lot of fun. And all of that, and then based on that, you can add on to your stay with specific additional plans that you may want. And so basically, the base pricing on that for your stay, with all your food included and your pickup and drop off from the airport included, is $1,000 a week per person. And basically, and then whatever you want to add on, we build that for you. Build out your, so if you want to go to tour the local distillery and then also go find out something about farming, but also get a textile class, plus then a cooking class, plus you want to do whitewater rafting, and then you also want to go to see where they grow chocolate, grow cacao down in the jungle, like we can put that all together for you, all with day trips and staying here in a comfortable place. And so that is, you have to contact us, and we will build it out and everything. But like I say, the $1,000 a week, base price to start with, and then if you're a couple, the second partner is half off. So we think that's pretty competitive. The only tour that I have listed on the website right now is the one that we literally just announced, pre-announced, and all of that. And that is for November 18th through December 2nd. And that is the food-related one. We are in the planning stages for December to January, so we're looking at Christmas time through the Epiphany, because that is Bajada de Reyes, which is the other really major festival in Ollantaytambo, and that is in January. And so we're looking at how to make Christmas, New Year's, and the Epiphany, sort of a 12 days of Christmas plan, and then which things, we're still coordinating what we can make happen with that and finding out what the pricing is going to be on doing some of those things, because when we do things like actually participate in the fiesta, costs can be a little bit different, because we've got to have one hell of a beer budget. I just need to let you know that, for being supporters and sustainers of a major local fiesta, or any part of it. It involves many cases of beer. That's just the facts of fiestas in Cusco. But anyway. So to get to go be behind the scenes doing that kind of stuff with a dance troupe, which is what we do, we have to estimate the prices and figure out where that comes in. And so we're looking at exactly what the scheduling stuff on that is going to be. And we'll probably be announcing that the December one in the coming week. And then we are looking at, again, doing late May, which is Señor de Choquequilca for a fiesta, and doing all of that. And I'm trying to figure out when exactly we're going to do the intensive textile techniques tour and how that's going to be structured, because again, we have to fit some of these things into different time frames, and when there's a lot happening in the Cusco area, it can be complicated to schedule and coordinate, because everyone is involved in doing traditional things. So when there are fiestas, when there are major events and stuff like that, like everybody doesn't necessarily want to be working Christmas Day or what have you, right? So there are different sort of ways that we want to put that kind of stuff together. Although actually we don't really celebrate it as Christmas Day here in our family, because it's Manuel's birthday. So we always sort of joke that we need to do something for between Manuel's birthday and my birthday, which is right after the Epiphany in January. So in Capricorn season. But yeah, so we still haven't finalized the pricing on that stuff, but we expect those to go up in the coming week, because I want to do the early bird registration and give people plenty of time to plan and that kind of stuff. So those are the things that are coming up. But we do also have that choose your own adventure plan, that sort of roll your own thing and so forth. And so you could absolutely get together a group of your friends who all have a particular time off together that you want us to build you an itinerary for, and we can take care of that for you too. And of course, if in-person travel isn't in the cards for all kinds of reasons, because there are a lot of reasons for it to not be in the cards for a lot of different people. We are working on expanding what we do virtually. So like I say, this trimester, Franquemont University runs with trimesters. And so our next trimester starts in September. We actually have a deal right now where if somebody signs up early, they get all of the advanced stuff plus all of the back content and everything. And if you get a full trimester subscription, you don't pay again until next year, which is pretty cool. And in September, we are launching the food portion of things, and as well as all of the textile stuff that we have several years of content about, and several years of classes that you can work through at your own pace, plus an online community that is very social and active, and you can hang out and chit chat and all of that kind of stuff. All of that is there, and that's ready to go. So we're adding food to that, and then coming in January, when the trimester after that starts, we are evaluating how to do virtual tour activities. We'd like to make it so that when we're here, when we have a group of folks here, there are at least a few events that people can sort of participate in virtually, where everybody can say, hey, we're here, we're learning to cook ají de gallina, and it's amazing, and share that back with friends who aren't along on the trip, and also so that people who have memberships at the online school can participate and get a little bit of something, going. So anyway, yeah, so that's all fun. And then the next thing that we're going to launch, as far as a real product, is going to launch right after that November tour, and that is a sort of a layaway plan, right? For a lot of different things. So you can give somebody a membership as a gift, or you can buy for yourself a membership that includes like paying that includes an amount that pays a discounted price for like one night stay for 1 or 2 people, with all your food included and your transport to and from the airport and whatnot. So that is also something that's coming up. And that's right, I almost forgot, and this was on my reminders over here that Jocelyn reminded me to pass along, that we have installment plans for every single one of our packages. So there's a lot of so sign up, pay your registration cost now to save your spot, and then pay as you go up until the actual event. So we don't have like you have to pay the full thing right this minute. As a total mandatory thing. We also do scheduled Zooms and info sessions for individual tours and gatherings and experiences. So when people are going to come, we have all of that ahead of time so that you can say, oh my God, well, should I buy, do I need hiking boots? What kind of jacket do I want? Stuff like that. And so that's something else that we do. If you know folks who are already coming to Peru and they have some free time or haven't scheduled stuff, sometimes we can help with planning some of that kind of stuff too. And we can make some of the day trips that we do or special events that we do accessible and available. Let me see, some other frequently asked questions that have come up is, are these trips for able-bodied people only? And the challenge there is that rural Peru is not super accessible. So it depends on what the mobility issues may be. If you have fatigue issues, if you're not in excellent physical condition, stuff like that, well, those are things that, that I myself face as somebody with post-COVID syndrome and bad knees and severe arthritis. So like if it's stuff like that, we can handle it. You can have a first floor room instead of going upstairs. You can have a lot of, you don't have to walk a lot necessarily. But if you want to go to like Machu Picchu, we can't make that any more accessible than it is. If you want to go out to a field where they're growing crops, we can't make that any more accessible than it already is. Like we do our best to select places that we can drive right up to, and then you get out and you're right there and that kind of stuff. But a whole lot of rural Peru, like anywhere outside of Lima, is not accessible for people who use wheelchairs. What people who use wheelchairs here commonly do is have family and friends who will help them over the inevitable 2-3 stairs to get into a place, or a lot of stuff like that. But it is unfortunately not the most accessible country in the world when it comes to a lot of that kind of stuff. We are sensitive to and aware of, those considerations, and so we do say, if you want to talk with us privately about any specific mobility issues or accommodations that you'd like to know more about, we are absolutely here to discuss all of that sort of thing. And I guess the other really key important thing is that we are socially progressive and socially conscious, and so we are absolutely concerned with being safe for LGBTQIA folks with being comfortable and approachable for people who are from many different cultural backgrounds. And we also work hard to be economically accessible to the fullest extent that we are able to. And we have high hopes that as things grow, with the stuff that we're reactivating finally after years of pandemic and all of that kind of stuff, we have hopes of being able to offer scholarships for some of our programs, growing into that kind of stuff. So those are some things that are important to know. And let me see the list of other questions over here as I'm scanning. None of you have asked the question that seems to keep coming up in a lot of tourism-focused groups, which is it safe to travel to Cusco? And the answer is, yeah, it is safe to travel to Cusco. There was civil unrest in December and January of this past year, and one of my best friends came to visit me in the middle of all that and stayed here, and things went fine. What does tend to happen in the event that there is any sort of civil unrest or anything like that is that schedules can be disrupted and they can be subject to change. But I'm going to be completely honest, it's Latin America, and that is always a risk. So this is one of the reasons why I have stopped publishing itineraries that say day 1 this, day 2 that, day 3 that, right? Because at one point we had to swap, because every time you have a tour group planned, there's something comes up and you'll have to swap Friday's event with Saturday's event and go to different towns or something like that. And there was actually somebody a while ago who was, before the pandemic, who was really upset that we did things on different days than what the itinerary said. And one of the feedbacks that we've gotten from people coming from Europe, we've had a number of folks who've come from Europe to visit us, is that they have felt much safer coming to Peru than they have felt going to visit the USA, for a variety of reasons. And so that's kind of a tough one. But yeah, so there is all of that kind of stuff. And since we live here, and we know the score, and we work with only local folks, like we're not even hiring people from Lima that have like a big corporate operation, we're making it all happen. There's a lot that we can accommodate and be flexible about and make amazing things happen. And yeah, so let's see, the other thing people sometimes ask is what happens if I have a super upset stomach and I just can't travel on a particular day trip? Well, that has happened. And that just means, usually that means that you stay here and we have some alternative stuff programmed for you potentially, like come in. And yeah, so weather is another big thing. Like weather happens, right? And sometimes, you kind of have to mention this because when you're working with people who travel for leisure, for a lot of different things, sometimes you can't work around lots of different things that happen, right? So for example, people who have been on Maui right now should be leaving so that emergency services can handle everything that they need to handle for local people who have been affected by wildfires and everything. But regrettably, that means that like people who have plans to go, end of this month to Maui are gonna have to cancel or reschedule or whatever with all of that, and be flexible with that kind of stuff. So we do have plans to deal with all of that sort of thing, and we started to be as good as we could be with that when we had a group that was due to arrive on the 14th of March 2020, and looking at the way that things were going at that point, we had to cancel that trip, and everybody got a non-expiring voucher to come on any trip in the future, even if it costs more in the future, as soon as we were able to resume, because we had no idea when that was going to be. And we did have somebody take advantage of that, you know, finally with our first trip in May, when that happened again, and they were very happy. I mean, nobody was happy to have to wait 3 years, but they were very happy and said it was well worth the wait. And they felt that they had been treated fairly and communicated with fairly the entire time. So in the event that there is a global pandemic and we have to cancel things, you will get a non-expiring voucher for any trip in the future. Which is about as good as we can make it. And the reason that we do it that way is because for a lot of these things that we do, we have to make reservations and put down deposits and stuff ahead of time. And so, for example, in 2020, we couldn't cancel and get our money back for tickets on the train to Machu Picchu or entrance to Machu Picchu. It just wasn't there. We were in the week leading up to everybody coming when we had to cancel. And on the 15th, the day after that tour group was supposed to arrive, Peru went into full hard lockdown and quarantine. And like, I didn't leave the house for 5 months. Only one person in every family was allowed to leave the house to do only essential things. The quarantines were no joke here. But anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much it. So those are sort of the basic things. Do we have other questions? People have been asking them as we go along. Medical care, health, and that kind of thing. So we will send you a health questionnaire, a medical history questionnaire, ahead of time, and have that reviewed by our local emergency hospital that actually does like a really great job with a whole lot of different stuff. And they're very experienced with travel medicine and that kind of thing as well. So that they can tell you, oh, well, this medication is one where you might want to talk to your cardiologist and get a different one or something like that. Or you probably want to get this prescription and take it on your way here, and that kind of thing. So we do have all of that. We are just about a half a kilometer from that emergency medical facility. So in the event that somebody starts to have a medical emergency, we can get you there like really, really fast. And they're excellent people, and there's generally not a wait for that. And they do take insurance from around the world. And also their pay out-of-pocket prices are reasonable. In some cases, you have to pay and then submit for reimbursement, depending on the specific insurance provider. One other question is, how has the COVID situation been there recently? Actually, our numbers have been continuing to decline steadily over 2023. And there has been no issue with unavailability of like hospital beds or anything like that. So things have been pretty stable. The Ministry of Health did just issue a warning about the new strain that is just starting to go around. And they are encouraging everybody who has not completed their vaccination scheme to complete their vaccination scheme. Complete vaccination scheme here is 5 doses. So that's, so for example, I have 2 doses of Sinopharm, 1 dose of Pfizer, 1 dose of Moderna, and then the bivalent booster. And that is a full vaccination scheme, and about 50% of Peru, 50% of the population has those 5, and 90% of the country, about 90% of the country has 3, and 85% has 4. So they are encouraging people to continue all of that. I should note that like public health nurses go door to door and walk around, you know, public events and so forth, and offer vaccination to Peruvians and Peruvian residents and so forth. So, you know, like last month I went to the farmer's market, and I was sitting there eating a snack at the farmer's market, and the public health nurses came around and were like, flu shot? Everybody here had a flu shot? Are you due for your flu shot? And like all of that kind of stuff. And so that's pretty important. People are still masking in most medical type settings. Doctors obviously mask, medical care providers obviously mask. Masks have not been required for indoor things in Peru since December, at the start of December. The mask mandates were lifted. And the same for vaccine mandates to go certain kinds of places. Like for a long time, you know, if you wanted to go into the mall, you had to show your vaccine card, and it had to be up to date and things like that. So, so those things have eased up, and again, numbers have been consistently slowing. But in fairness, you know, Peru was very hard hit by COVID, and so, you know, we had a span of time when the numbers were very, very bad, and the situation was very, very rough. And you know, when I had COVID, when our whole family had COVID, 80% of the population of Ollantaytambo had it, and everybody was sick all at the same time. And all you could do was, you know, the best you could. You know, you couldn't, you know, necessarily get oxygen. There were no hospital beds there. It was really rough. But it's not like that now. But I think one of the things that is important to know is that for the most part, Peruvians have been taking it seriously as a risk. And this is important, I think, to know, because Peru is a, you know, it is a middle-income country with a lot of income inequality and unequal access to healthcare, depending on the population. And so institutionally and culturally, it has a lot of experience with dealing with outbreaks of illnesses and how to treat them and a lot of that kind of stuff. So, for instance, earlier this year in the jungle parts of Peru, there was an outbreak of dengue fever, which is a mosquito-borne illness, and all of that kind of stuff. So that was a thing that had to be handled and so on. And yeah, they take it very seriously. Public health is something that Peru is generally quite concerned with. I hope that answers the question. I don't mask if I'm walking down the sidewalk anymore, but if I'm going to a large gathering, I still mask. And the same is true for a lot of people. So you still see people masking all over the place. There's none of this thing where people are like, why are you wearing a mask? You know, there's no COVID. That's not a thing here. Let's see, what else? Altitude, people often ask, you know, is altitude a major risk? Is it a major threat? Well, you know, altitude is a thing that you have to take seriously. Like, you have to know that it usually does mean that you have to acclimate. But I think if you talk to people who've come on our experiences in the past, they will tell you that we took some measures that are not necessarily standard or classic. We try to not be, we're not like, we're not trying to be like a tour agency. We're trying to facilitate experiences that are cool, right? And that go deeper. So we're not like, yes, let me give you 5 days and you will see all of these places that you have to go and take these standard selfies that you're supposed to take and put on Instagram, right? I mean, we're going to take you some places where you're going to get some amazing selfies that nobody else has on Instagram. But that is not like our key objective. So like there are tour operators who do things that I personally think are not super responsible. So like I think, as soon as you get to altitude, you should be adjusting to altitude. So some people will be like, yes, fly in at noon and then go on an ATV quad riding tour of an even higher altitude place. No, absolutely not. And then people are like, well, fly in at 10 a.m. and go straight to a really massive lunch. No. Again, these are things that tend to cause really bad altitude reactions. What we like to do is bring you straight to Ollantaytambo, which is lower altitude, from the Cusco airport, and observe you carefully, letting you snack on small amounts of food. Patricia, that was small amounts of food that we had you snack on, right? Maybe only for Latin Americans. But yeah, we'll let you have like a little bit at a time of some snacks and make sure that you're hydrated and talk to you and watch how you're responding. And then we get to Ollantaytambo after you have been through some amazing scenery and all of that kind of stuff. And then you get here and you settle down and you get kind of settled into your room, oriented and all that kind of stuff, and you can have a nap and some herbal tea and all of that kind of thing. And then we have a light meal that is easily digestible, and that is carefully prepared not to cause problems. And then you spend the night and you wake up in the morning, and the first day is like limited slow activity and all that kind of stuff right here in town. And we make sure that you get acclimated before we set out to any going to higher altitude things and a lot of that kind of stuff. Another thing that's a little unusual is we don't package Machu Picchu in with the whole thing, because we have a lot of people who come more than once, and they don't necessarily want to keep going back and seeing the most expensive thing to see that for many of them is not a highlight of the trip. For many people, even though that is a must see, it's a must see once. It's not a must go every single time. And sort of like, maybe you go to New York City and see the Statue of Liberty one time, but that doesn't mean every time you go to New York City, you need to go see the Statue of Liberty. So, so we make that optional. We make that something that you don't necessarily have to do. And instead of sort of saving it for last, because it is lower altitude and it is really accessible from here in Ollantaytambo, we do it earlier in the trip, and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, it was pretty cool, and yeah, and so yeah, so we like to. That is another way to try and make things more affordable for people, is to make certain things optional, like why pay to go to Machu Picchu, which is the most expensive and crowded experience that you'll have on a trip to the Cusco area, if you don't want to go again. Like, that's the way we see it. So Ken says, well, maybe if you're an ultra runner who lives in the Rockies, you could do all that stuff upon arriving at altitude. Actually, even then, it's important to, lives in the Rockies maybe helps, but it is important to know that altitude issues can happen to anybody. They can happen to people who have never had altitude issues in the past. and who've gone back and forth and so forth. I remember one time I actually, we had, this was maybe 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, working with my parents on groups that they were bringing. This one lady came and she had been to the Cusco area many, many times, and she still got very sick, and she had high altitude cerebral edema, which is extremely dangerous, and the only thing you can do about it is immediately get somebody on oxygen into a pressurized situation. And so, we got her back down to Lima on the coast right away, and that's, you have to take it seriously. You have to know that these things are there, and you have to know that you're with a team who knows how to deal with all of that. And again, we do have a team who knows how to deal with all that, who knows all those symptoms, who recognizes all of these things, and is prepared to spring into action. I will say during the pandemic, when we all had nothing to do but sit around the house, Manuel, our retired Inca Trail porter and adventure cook and logistics guy and all of that kind of stuff, right? He got obsessed with watching all these YouTube channels of Sherpas who, that's the culture that people come from who do being a porter for going to Mount Everest. And so he got obsessed with watching all of their YouTube channels where they were talking and had like translated into English things about what they experienced taking people up Mount Everest and that kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, and another thing. And, so it was really, it's really kind of funny. So I guess people who have had those experiences have a lot in common. And Manuel was like, I'm so glad we don't actually have Mount Everest here, because, man, that would be a hell job. But yeah, he is excellent at this, and all that. And so let's see, what else? Have I missed anything? Let me just go back over my list. I covered that we are launching Choose Your Own Adventure. I covered that we are going to be firming up and publishing the stuff for December, January, and May in the coming week. I covered that we are launching food for the digital online stuff. Launching food sounds like I've got like a potato cannon or, something like that, a burger trebuchet, but that's not what I mean. And yeah, I covered different kinds of travel safety. I covered that you can contact us at any point in time to talk about any specifics or accommodations, and also that we can coordinate for you a whole wide variety of experiences. I guess the last thing to say is that we like to do this the way we do, where you come here and you move in and you're at home and you've got a home away from home, as opposed to what a lot of tours like to do, where you're going to be changing town and changing hotel every single day. That is really tiring and really exhausting, and really and it just adds to the layer of complexity and complication. And we think it's just so much nicer to like come for a week or two, move into where you're going to be staying, have that room that is your home away from home, and know that it is safe and you can leave all your stuff there, and then you just go out on day trips with like a small bag that's just got what you need for the day, sunblock, an extra sweater, your hat, portable charger for your phone, that kind of stuff. All right, so I think that is pretty much it. I hope folks have found this interesting, and so yeah, we'll just say goodbye. I'm going to wait a minute or two just in case there are any questions, because there's always like a little bit of a delay and all this kind of stuff. And so the link that you got for this will also be the link for the recording, which is going to be live, you know, and available on the YouTube channel in just a little bit. And please do feel free to share that around, along with links to the website. Like I say, the only one that is live and available for sale today is the food tour for the last 2 weeks in November. And in the coming week, so by the 20th of August, I do expect to be finalizing pricing and itineraries. Well, as much as we can finalize itineraries for anything in Latin America ever. But, you know, finalizing the details for December and January and May, and also listing details for the choose your own stuff. Now, the choose your own stuff, I am going to list a, you know, I can't just list on the website and then you click it and you buy it, because we don't have a live availability checker system like a lot of like a hotel would have, because we're not a hotel. So that is you have to email us and redo it by quote. But I'm going to put up a form that is request it and that kind of thing. And also we can provide some planning services as well. So you can schedule to have us like help you plan your own itinerary. I mean, there's a cost that goes along with that, a consulting fee that goes along with it, so that you can feel confident that you're having a good time here. I guess, like I say, we just want people to come here, have a good time, and have a more profound experience than what a lot of sort of tour operators really provide. The other thing is you can join mailing lists on the website, the newsletter on the website, and subscribing to the newsletter will mean that you will get immediate notification when we are listing new stuff. So if you want to be notified when we put new things up, go ahead and make sure you join the newsletter. Subscribe, all of that. And I think that's it. So thank you all for joining me, and I hope to see you soon.